Live from New York City, it's the Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.
Hi, I'm Gary Null. Always a pleasure to be able to share the best information on health and healing with you. How to de-age, how to reverse the aging process naturally, how to interfere in the disease process to your advantage, how to prevent disease to begin with. Always the best articles and the best journals. And we get this from the National Library of Medicine, the official repository of peer-reviewed literature. Now, why do I select the different articles I do? That's because we're a worldwide audience. We have people all over the world watching right now because our health and nutrition segment we video stream. And I'll give you an example. Because everybody wants to be healthy, or should. And a new study out of University in Brazil shows that there is anti-tumor properties in pomegranates. Well, we knew that pomegranate was very good for the heart and the arteries. It helps heal damaged arteries and veins, and it certainly helps the heart, and it gives you nitric oxide, which increases the vasodilation, meaning it opens up the arteries and veins and allows the blood to flow stronger through there, therefore improving the microcirculation to both your brain and your legs and feet. How many times have you looked down to your ankles and seen that there's kind of little purplish colors? And that's oxygen deprivation, that's poor circulation. And so we want to improve that. Varicosity is the same way. Now, during a normal lifespan, all of us under the most perfect conditions still cause accumulative damage to our arteries, the inner walls, the inner sanctum of the artery and vein, the epithelium. And when you have highly acidic foods in the diet, when you have a lot of alcohol in the diet, you damage that severely. And that causes stiffening, a hardening, a calcification of the arteries. As a result, we call it arterial sclerosis and atherosclerosis. And that leads to cardiovascular disease, and that leads to stroke and heart attacks. So now we can add, along with a lot of other good foods, like in nutrients like vitamin E, coenzyme Q10, L-carnitine, vitamin C, magnesium, and calcium. We had pomegranates. Now, pomegranates now come from all over the world, so we have them pretty much 12 months a year. But if for some reason you can't find a pomegranate, then I suggest you get the unsweetened pomegranate juice. But if you want even more potency at the cellular level, have concentrated pomegranate. And the only thing that makes it concentrated is that you've taken the juice and you've wicked off a lot of the water, and therefore it's more concentrated. And here's what it does. This is an all-natural product, and it shows enormous potential for treating cancer. And the pomegranate is a fruit, and there's hundreds of studies on its ability to help the body, and now there's studies on its anti-cancer potential. And in fact, it wasn't until recently that researchers from Brazil were able to observe pomegranate's anti-cancer properties in an in vivo, VIVO study. Their findings were published in the Journal of Medicinal Plants Research. And now we know that we should have a pomegranate a day, just like an apple a day. Well, we should, and an onion a day, raw onion. Yeah, really good. The red onion is the best. These are things we should have on a regular basis. And traditionally, people have had the pomegranate, generally in southern climates, for sore throats and coughs and urinary tract infections and digestive disorders and skin disorders and arthritis and the heart. But with current advancements in science, researchers were able to identify the bioactive compounds in the pomegranate, and that's important. They found that it's rich in what are called tannins, T-A-N-N-I-N-S, and also what is called penicillin, P-U-N-I-C-A-L-I-N, gallic acid, G-A-L-L-I-C acid, egalic acid, E-L-L-A-G-I-C acid, and its derivatives. Now, these are all natural chemicals, and Many existing scientific publications attribute the healing and antibacterial effect and the chemopreventative effect and the anti-tumor effect of pomegranates to those compounds. And so they did a study and it proved exactly that. So if something can help interfere in the cancer we have in our body, and that was after just 8 days, they found significant increases in the number of what is called a suicide cells, meaning the cancer cells were committing suicide, and as a apoptotic effect. That indicates that pomegranates work against cancer by inducing programmed cell death, which will then signal immune cells to eliminate them without triggering an inflammatory response. Hey, how about that? So that's just good news all the way around. Now, another piece of good news comes from Johns Hopkins University. Have you heard of magnolia bark? I know you've heard of the magnolia tree and the magnolia blossoms. I have magnolia trees, and some were planted in the 1920s, I found out. They give you big, beautiful white flowers. And in any case, now they play a role in healthy sleep. More good news. This from Johns Hopkins University. Have you heard of magnolia bark? No? You've heard of magnolia blossom, beautiful plant, big white, beautiful blossoms. Well, now there's new research showing that magnolia bark can help give you a better night's sleep. Now we know that L-theanine that you find in green tea can help you sleep. 200 milligrams really is good for you. We know that by turning off all electrical devices in your room, all cell phones, laptops, and unplugging your computer and television, that helps. Being in a dark room, and if you have noise, wearing earplugs, that helps. Not eating within 4 hours going to bed, that really helps. And especially having no caffeinated beverages within 4 hours going to bed. But add on to that, and magnesium helps too, and a hot bath or shower helps. But now you have the Magnolia officinatus. That's a flowering tree whose bark and flowers are commonly used in traditional Chinese, Japanese, and Korean medicine. However, most people today are not that familiar with the herb, which is very unfortunate since it's associated with a wide variety of health benefits. One of the most common uses of the magnolia bark is to promote sleep and relaxation and to de-stress you. The bark of the magnolia tree is rich in bioactive compounds, such as what is called the magnolol and the honocochiol, and that have been shown to have anti-inflammatory, that's your arthritis, diabetes, and cancer, heart disease, and also any kind of inflammation in the brain. It also has antibacterial effects and anti-allergy properties. Yeah, all that. But also now it contributes to overall well-being, and it gives you a better night's sleep. And it causes an increase in the production of what is called gamma aminobutyric acid, or GABA, GABA. That's a brain chemical that induces a calming effect on the brain. And by increasing the amount of this neurotransmitter, you can effectively prevent insomnia, which is a sleep disorder associated with low GABA levels. Now, adrenaline and cortisol are some of the other substances in the body that are affected by magnolia bark intake. However, unlike GABA, these two are reduced in the presence of the herb. This is beneficial for those who need more sleep and need to be a little more relaxed, all right? Instead of alert and vigilant, which is what happens when you have an adrenaline rush. So the magnolia bark contains at least one compound that increases the amount of time a person spends in rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, which is important for quality of sleep. And this was published in the journal Neuroscientist. So again, those are good studies, something that's non-toxic and all natural that helps us. Now, something else that helps us is a study out of Harvard School of Public Health. And it's about the time spent in nature, in the woods, by a lake, by the ocean, looking out at great green pastures. That slows Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and therefore helps with dementia. So the takeaway message is simple. Living in an area with easy access to parks and rivers appears to slow the progression of the devastating neurological diseases. And that's the conclusion of a new study based on more than a decade and a half tracking disease risk among nearly 62 million Americans 65 years and older. And prior research showed that natural environments, such as forests and parks and rivers, can help to reduce stress and restore attention. That was from the fellow at Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health in Boston. In addition, natural environments provide settings for physical activity and social interactions. And I just think that we're lacking in today's modern world with so many people spending too much time in front of their computers and laptops and cell phones, looking down instead of looking around. So the key is heads up, you become aware of everything around you. Heads down, you don't. That's simple. I know that when I've been asked a lot of times by people, in fact, just on Christmas Day, or the day before Christmas, some people showed up here from New York, and they were just outside. I saw the car, and people stop here all the time because of the beautiful flowers and herbs and shrubs and trees of all different types. It's the most, let's put it this way, I've spent 26 years with my hobby, which is landscape architecture. And I love to take things that are barren and make an oasis out of them. And I've done that here. And that's how I can balance my life. When I'm in New York, love New York City historically. It was just, I couldn't imagine a better place to be. Every morning in Central Park, just being in that park with thousands of other people running. You're in a place of lots of trees and a beautiful park, one of the most beautiful parks in America. And then on the weekends, I would go upstate to the Fertler Farm for 15 years, then out to New Jersey on Lake Apacon for another 5 years, until I then purchased the Healing Springs Ranch. And then when I sold that, I purchased this place. So I've always, my whole adult life, I've lived on a farm or a ranch, but also living in the city, getting the culture of the city. Well, here I don't get the culture, and I don't have company. I'm here alone. And that's fine. I'm not lonely because I've got all these wonderful, loving creatures that I just laugh with, and they're fun. And especially the babies that are brought in that have been abandoned or abused, and getting them back to loving people again. It's just joyful. But more than anything, it's just walking in nature. So I believe that we can do more with our own backyard. In fact, in about a month, I'm going to do a video workshop on how you can turn your home and your backyard, if you have one, and if not, a room in your house, into a little oasis. And so you can have that, because we all have different circumstances. And I believe that more and more people should consider, if they can, not everyone can, but maybe changing your locations. And when you look at this storm that just passed, and you see that over 60 people that we know of died, mainly freezing to death, and shouldn't we take that as a message that a once-in-a-lifetime event is now happening sometimes once a year? And then that's just the freezing that's going on. Imagine now with the increase in all of our utilities, which is going to keep going up. My own utilities here, and I've got solar, I've got backup, generators with 6 months worth of propane. So I'm set here, and I insulated the house when I built it. I designed and built this house myself. That when it was 38 degrees out, no heat on in the house, it was 70 degrees. That's the power of insulation. And most people don't have well-insulated houses. Most people don't have backup systems. Most people living around the oceans of America, which is about 60 million people, don't have a plan B. We saw that with the devastation, and it's still devastated. And unfortunately, people weren't covered. Most of them weren't covered by insurance. They lost everything. Now, mind you, when you drive up the west coast of Florida, not the east coast so much, but the west coast of Florida, you see thousands of homes, old homes built in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, small homes, 1,200 square foot, right on the ocean. And then beside them, you see these gigantic, buildings, and that's the expense. So these people probably had a house that cost them $50,000 when it was built, and now it's worth $1 million. Yeah, and they have beautiful yards and wonderful ornamental trees, all kinds of landscaping designs, just delightful. In fact, every time I go to the farmer's market, which is down there, I drive up these side streets just to look at people's yards, and if I see them out, I'll stop and roll down the window and give them a thumbs up. Hey, you got a beautiful home there. Not now. It's all gone. When I say all gone, the salt water came in from the ocean with a 9 foot, and then in some place went up to 12 foot. And you see the water line on the houses. And these are not 2-story houses, 1-story house. And all you see is just huge, almost unbelievable mounds of furniture up the entire road, miles of it. Now they're cleaning it up. But then what you see are all those beautiful old palm trees dead because of the salt water. And the grass, all the grass dead because of the salt water. It rested, and that will kill off grass, it'll kill the roots of trees. And so now it just looks like a desolate place. Now the big mansions down in Port Royal, a 2-mile stretch, much like West Palm Beach or Laguna Beach, that's where the wealthy people live, they can rebuild. They're already bringing in new palm trees and putting down new soil and then putting grass down. They can afford that. But all the tens of thousands of Floridians, they've lost everything. They no longer have any equity. And now in Fort Myers, the city council passed ordinances that you can't rebuild unless you have a longer lot. Well, they don't have longer lots. They said, too bad. House gets torn down, because once a house is flooded, you got mold, and the mold's inside the walls. So you have to gut the whole house. You have to tear it down and start over. How many times are you going to do that? How many times can you afford to do that? And what did we learn from Katrina and Hurricane Sandy? How about nothing? I've spoken probably now with 300 people since the hurricane who live down there. And I just ask them, friend, what did you do to prepare for the storm? And the answer is always the same. And I mean, always, every single case, nothing. What could we do? We didn't think it would be this bad. It wasn't that bad 5 years ago. And then you see the insurance checks coming if they have coverage. I got an insurance check and there's nothing on it. I sent it back. Why? Because I know if I cashed it, that would be considered the end of it. No, I got an insurance adjusting company and I got to rebuild. And but I'm not in the flood zone. I'm not, I'm way back off the ocean. I'm back in the sticks. This blue collar country. My neighbors are, working class people. And so this isn't a high end area. I wanted land so I could build things. But the takeaway message is this. Shouldn't we start looking at where we can sustain ourselves, including places that have a lot of beauty, a lot of natural beauty in the woods, not in the deserts? And I'm going to show you later on some clips, brand new, about how people are moving to one area of Arizona. And it shows you up on a mountain, the entire valley is just house after house. And where's the water? And they're building gigantic new places for 1 million people, and there's no water, just groundwater. You take groundwater, and it's gone. It's gone forever. This isn't fed by the Colorado River. Why? Why are we doing everything wrong when it comes to the environment? We're doing nothing right, nothing at all, zero. You've sold that money, none of it's going to go for anything. It's going to go into corporate people who lobby and got the money, just like with so many other programs, and nothing gets done. We're not planting 2 billion trees, which we should. We're not asking people to stop over consuming, which they are. We're not asking people to change what they buy because they don't need it and save the money, which they're not doing. And we don't ask people, stop moving to non-sustainable places. Move while you can. And we have all these examples, the hurricane 2 months ago, and now this freeze. And yet people say, well, it'll thaw and it'll get better. Nothing concerning the environment will ever in your lifetime get better. It will only get worse. So why not go to a place with beauty? And there are lots of beautiful places that are sustainable and are not susceptible to these environmental destructive events. Just suggesting it, because it's also good for our state of mind. It's good to detoxify, relax our emotions. It's one of the best things you can do. And we're not doing it. We're congested into urban and suburban environments. And some people, no matter what happens, they're not going to move. But other people are now considering, maybe intentional communities, but they're considering it. Good for you. And also, finally, from the University of Chicago Business School and Northwestern University comes a study about the joy of giving lasts longer than the joy of getting. Now think about that. How do you feel when you've done something that people didn't expect? You ask nothing in return. It's not a quid pro quo. It's just that you feel if you have a gift in life, whatever that gift is, give it. Don't put a price on it. Remember, we're very cost conscious. We know the cost of everything and the value of nothing. So why not put what we do upon the value of something versus the cost of something? The value of kindness, the value of caring, the value of helping others when you weren't asked, but see there's a need and you jump in. That energy lasts because it's coming from a spiritual place. And instead of saying, well, I got to walk by you because I can't do anything for you. You're poor and you're on the street and you're homeless and you're probably a drug addict or an alcoholic. So I'd just be wasting my money, and you walk on. No, the vast majority of people on the streets are not alcoholic and drug addicts or mentally ill. That's the excuse they try to give us. Some are, absolutely. But what about all the Americans who lost their homes in 2008? Were they drug addicts? Were they mentally ill? Were they alcoholics? No. And there are 27 million of them. 2.5 million were children. Are they drug addicts? They get out of school each day. They have no home to go to. Do they count? Do poor children count? I believe they do. I believe homeless vets do. That's why I contribute to the Daily Bread. They help get them food and clothing. Even bought a truck, fix it up, just so the vets who have skills but don't have a truck to get to a place to get a job. Now, a bunch of them can share this. And so there's a lot we can do. Even if you have not a lot of money yourself, you can still find ways of helping others. And you're going to feel good about it. Because the happiness we feel after a particular event or activity diminishes each time we experience that event, a phenomenon known as hedonic adaptation. Hedonic adaptation. But giving to others may be the exception to this rule. According to research in the Psychological Science, the Journal of the Association of Psychological Science, 2 studies by psychologists found that you have happiness did not decline after you gave to others. So, put happiness on your side. Share your gifts in life with others. If they're appreciated or not, appreciate the fact that you're functioning at a spiritual level and you're caring about those who have less. That's the latest on health and healing. We're going to take a break. And remember, if you want to see the thousands of video clips we have, you can go to YouTube, unless we get thrown off, which we probably will, because almost anything that we say will be anathema to some corporate interest. But you can also go, and more importantly, I would suggest you go to Rumble. Again, go to Rumble because it's got all these videos. And Odysee has, are you ready for this? According to Rodney in our New York studios, and they found 4,000 of our clips on Odysee. And it's free on Rumble and Odysee. I believe it's free, pretty sure. So go there, all right? Or always GaryNull.com, and then scroll down to the article or video or whatever it is, or PRN.Live. Okay? Back in a moment with the rest of our program. Please stay with us.
Are you tired of closed-minded programming? Well, look no further than PRN.Live, the home for progressive voices.